Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to Utility Sports. We have just concluded the 2021 NFL Draft, a wonderful draft weekend. A lot of teams made a lot of good moves, setting their franchises up for the future. And today we're going to be taking a look a little bit further into the future at next year's 2022 NFL Draft. This is the first rendition, a way too early special version of the 2022 NFL mock draft. If this is something you guys are interested in seeing as we go progress throughout the year, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on any content here at Utility Sports. Also hit the like button. It would mean so much for us. So let's jump into it here. Number one, this is a projection here from the Pro Football Network. They expect the Detroit Lions to earn the number one overall pick. I think that's a pretty fair assumption. Them and Houston Texans are probably going to be the two worst teams next season. So, Austin, how do they go about building this team up under head coach Dan Campbell, who grabbed Penei Sewell 7th overall?
Yeah, so number one overall, it's going to be a quarterback. I think it's pretty clear that, they prioritize building around that quarterback position, obviously by drafting Penei Sewell. And they also focus a little bit on the interior of their defensive line with their next couple of picks. But it is going to be quarterback. There is a guy that has a lot of steam to ultimately be that number one overall selection. That's Spencer Rattler out of the University of Oklahoma. Obviously, Lincoln Riley does a really great job developing quarterbacks and turning them into draft picks, obviously with Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. But Spencer Rattler has a really big-time arm. He's got one of the best arm talents in the entire class, if not the best. But he had some inconsistencies last year. Oklahoma struggled as a whole for the program. But Spencer Rattler I think he will turn it around and ultimately turn himself into the number one overall pick. I just think his arm talent is really special. And for the Detroit Lions, they are definitely looking for a quarterback next year. Jared Goff is not the long-term answer. I think Spencer Rattler is here at 1.
Right, Detroit is definitely an interesting situation. They do have multiple picks here in this first round to try and build this thing up. I like the Penei Sewell pick this year. Spencer Rattler, I love that selection, first overall for the Detroit Lions. Moving into pick 2 now, this is an interesting situation because obviously Deshaun Watson might not even be able to play this year. He might not be a Houston Texan for another down if that's the case. Do you see Deshaun Watson getting traded, and does that impact this pick right here, Austin?
I think he does get traded. I think they will have quite a few picks in this draft class, just considering he does get dealt, and whatever team trades for him will likely have a pretty high selection. So for Houston, it's all about replacing him. They took Davis Mills this year in a head-scratching move. However, they come back with Sam Howell from North Carolina, another very productive college player. He had some really nice weapons, especially at the running back and wideout spot last year at North Carolina. The Houston Texans will desperately be looking for that next quarterback. Maybe they kind of give Davis Mills a little bit of a test run this year. I don't think that he will be the long-term answer, and they will just have a backup in him throughout the duration of his contract. Sam Howell will be the pick from North Carolina. Houston definitely has a problem with their entire roster. They're trying to reconstruct it, reconfigure, and it starts at that quarterback spot.
Yes, it does. It'll be interesting to see if Davis Mills does get an opportunity to run the show there. I'm not expecting big things there from the Houston Texans. That roster is void of talent. And Sam Howell's North Carolina Tar Heels did just lose quite a bit of talent in this year's draft as well. Javonte Williams, Michael Carter, the two lead backs, are in the NFL now. Also, Diami Brown made it to the NFL. So we'll see how Sam Howell plays next year. But like you said, I'm expecting big things from him at UNC. Pick number 3 now, the Jacksonville Jaguars are here on the clock, and they had a wonderful draft, in my opinion. They filled in the quarterback position with their franchise guy, Trevor Lawrence. I also do like the Travis Etienne pick. I think he's a perfect fit next to James Robinson. How do they go about building off of what they did this past draft?
Yeah, so honestly, they really did have a focus on getting speed and athleticism. They are going to get arguably the best player in this entire class with the selection, and Kayvon Thibodeaux from Oregon. Obviously, they are looking to build up that defense. It is not what it used to be, like those 2017 Jaguars. They completely have rebuilt, and getting in a top-end edge talent and Kayvon Thibodeaux is phenomenal for them. They obviously have Josh Allen and they have Caleb Von Chase on, but they want to look to build off of that. They're switching to that 3-4 or 3-4 hybrid where they also could have some 4-3 looks. I think that is clear and obvious that they have to address the defensive side of the ball, considering their 2 first-round picks this year were both offense.
Right. Kayvon Thibodeau is a perfect fit into there. You mentioned that versatility that he'll provide into that 3-4, looking at what Caleb Chason can do athletically. Josh Allen, also very athletic. I think this is a good move for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Moving on to pick 4 now, we're at the Philadelphia Eagles. They're also another team that has 2 first-round picks in this draft when they traded down from pick 6 back to 12. We'll see now at pick 4. Austin, how do you have them improving this roster?
So I think it starts at that cornerback spot for Philly. Derek Stingley Jr. from LSU is going to be the selection. We've known for quite some time that he was going to be a top 10 pick, played really, really well as a true freshman at LSU. Obviously, he continues to build off of that, and I think this year is going to be that true breakout season for him, a true lockup man-to-man corner that at the next level is going to really strive. Super fluid, good hips, also very, very good playing the ball. So for the Eagles, you love getting Derek Stingley Jr. here. He could be that lockdown corner of the future in your secondary.
Yeah, I really love Derek Stingley Jr. here. I think that there's no surprise he's the first cornerback off in our way too early version of the 2022 NFL mock draft. It'll be interesting to see how this year plays out if he does take those steps forward as a cornerback to lock his spot up here at pick 4. Moving on to pick 5 now, a team that did just draft a player from LSU, that is Jamar Chase. The Cincinnati Bengals are here. Many thought they could have grabbed a tackle in round 1. Are you looking in that direction, or are you looking somewhere else, Austin?
I think the writing's on the wall at the cornerback spot. I just don't think they have enough in that secondary for the Cincinnati Bengals. Ahmad Gardner, the corner from Cincy, he gets to stay in Cincinnati and play for the Bengals. I think this is a great move. Cincinnati definitely needs some help on that defense, especially in the secondary. Ahmad Gardner is going to be the selection. It's possible that they might have to readdress looking at a tackle if it doesn't work out with a guy like Jackson Carman this season. But however, I don't think that's going to be the case. Ahmad Gardner is going to be a phenomenal pick for them at 5.
We see back-to-back cornerbacks go now in the top 5 here, and this is a big-time situation for Cincinnati. They obviously lost William Jackson to the Washington football team, so a big loss there. They come back in the 2022 NFL draft and address it early on. Pick 6 now, we've got my New York Jets here on the clock. They had a very busy day 1. Drafted Zach Wilson 2nd overall, moved back up for Elijah Vera Tucker, left their day 2 kind of quiet, grabbed Elijah Moore. Where do you see the Jets going based on their pretty quality draft, in my opinion?
Yeah, I mean, they had a pretty quality draft as a whole. The one thing that they're really lacking is on the defensive side of the ball. Yet they definitely need an edge, and they also need to look at that cornerback spot. For the New York Jets, we have Drake Jackson from USC going here at number 6 overall. The Jets need to be more stout up front. Joe Douglas is going to prioritize the trenches. Obviously, we've seen that with Elijah Vera Tucker, Mekhi Becton. They're going to spend another first-round pick in the trenches, except on the defensive side of the ball.
Right, yeah, this board has kind of played its way into the Jets' hands where, hey, the cornerbacks went, but we have to still find an edge at this point anyway. They have some good options at that point, and Drake Jackson, a really good pick coming out of USC. Pick number 7 now, we've got the New York Giants here, and they've done a wonderful job building up this roster. They're trade down and still grabbing Kadarius Toney. I really like there for that franchise. They have 2 first-round picks here. They're projected at 7 and 10 in this year's draft. At 7, Austin, where do they go now?
I think it's about addressing the second level of that defense. Christian Harris from Alabama is going to be the pick. They've done a really nice job as a whole, just rounding out their roster. And that trade down with Chicago really set them up for this draft because they could have 2 top 15 selections, which could be really, really interesting. It's also possible that they still win the division, so let's not completely rule that out. But I mean, Chicago's pick is not going to be, in the lower part of the draft. It's going to be that top 15 range, in my opinion. Christian Harris, good fit here for the New York Giants.
Yeah, I like that fit next to Blake Martinez. And you're looking at the Giants really taking a lot of steps forward with the moves that Dave Gettleman has made recently. Pick 8 now, we've got the Atlanta Falcons here. Obviously grabbed Kyle Pitts on day 1. Came back and grabbed Richie Grant on day 2, a pick that you and I both really, really liked for the Atlanta Falcons after losing their starting safeties. Austin, where could the Falcons look to go this year? Is quarterback a possibility?
Quarterback is where we're going to have the Falcons going. Just considering Matt Ryan has 2 years left on his deal, Keaton Slovis from USC could play himself into a top 10 selection. Right now, he's kind of outside looking in, but generally when the NFL draft happens, quarterbacks get pushed up a lot of people's boards regardless. Atlanta could have Keaton Slovis for 1 year sitting behind Matt Ryan, and then they can hand him the keys to be their franchise quarterback.
I like that a lot. Atlanta's got to be taking a little bit of a long-term approach as well as trying to put some talent around Matt Ryan right now. Keaton Slovis is a good move for them. And just like this year, we saw 5 QBs go in the top 15. At this point, we have 3 QBs go in the top 8. Seems like a pretty similar trend might happen. Probably not quite the depth in this year's class, but still 3 really good quarterbacks go in the top 10. Pick number 9, we got the Denver Broncos here. And their team, again, projected to land in this 9th spot, grabbed Patrick Surtain at 9th this year. Where could the Broncos look to go next season?
Yeah, so for the Denver Broncos, I think they are going to be looking to replace Von Miller. We already had some talks about, them potentially moving on from him. Brenton Cox from Florida could be a phenomenal selection for them. Denver definitely has to keep up that defense. We know Vic Fangio is going to prioritize defense in the draft. He has shown that time and time again. And for them, they have to replace Von Miller if that whole contract situation gets ugly.
Yes, I think that they've put themselves in a pretty good position looking at that franchise. I really like what they've done at the cornerback spot, especially once they brought in Patrick Surtain on draft night. And now coming in, getting that edge rusher of the future, Brenton Cox. I really love this situation for Vic Fangio. We'll see how they go about addressing quarterback long-term, but with how the board's fallen, I think Brenton Cox is the no-brainer pick here. Pick number 10, we've got the Giants yet again. Obviously grabbed Christian Harris, 7th overall, Austin. Where could they go to build up this roster a little bit more, maybe help out Daniel Jones?
I think they're going to help out Daniel Jones by selecting Evan Neal. Obviously, they're giving Daniel Jones every opportunity to succeed at the next level. Evan Neal could be that right tackle for them or left tackle. It really depends on, how they feel about Andrew Thomas moving forward. They also had drafted Matthew Pert. I'm not exactly sure how their feelings on him, but getting Evan Neal, a player that is worthy of being a top 10 selection as a tackle, could be beneficial for this team. Obviously, they went defense in the first round. They come back with an offensive player at 10.
Exactly. And those 2 tackles you mentioned, Austin, are the exact reason our viewers here should hit that subscribe button, as things are going to change throughout the season. Maybe Matthew Pert and Andrew Thomas play great this year. Maybe the Giants don't need to be looking at a tackle possibly in the first round in order to stay up to date with all the NFL draft coverage you guys are going to want and need. Hit that subscribe button right now. Moving into pick 11, we got the Washington football team here now. And they brought in William Jackson, but I still think that they could look into that secondary a little bit more. That's kind of where I would lean. Austin, who are you mocking here to the Washington football team?
Number 11, Darian Kendrick from Clemson. I think Darian Kendrick offers pretty good upside for this team. They have built up such a phenomenal defense. I want to see them continue that all the way into their secondary and keep building that moving forward. Washington will figure out something at quarterback. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to address that. Maybe they look to the trade market potentially, but they want to keep building up that defense. At the quarterback spot right here, I don't feel super comfortable with them taking one. I just don't think that's their style. They're going to try taking, one of the best players available, and that's Darian Kendrick from Clemson.
Yes, this is a very interesting way the board is played out now. Darian Kendrick, a guy we thought would have been a first-round pick this past year had he come out, opted to stay at Clemson. We have him going 11th overall now to Washington. At pick 12, we got the Las Vegas Raiders. They've had a very, very interesting offseason. Let go of a lot of the starting offensive line. Made a surprising pick on night 1 at pick 17 with Alex Leatherwood. Where do you see John Gruden and Mike Mayock going at pick 12?
It's funny that you mentioned that. This is another player that we thought was going to come out this year. That's Chris Olave, who was thought to be a definite first-round selection. Obviously, him and Justin Fields had a really, really good connection, but the Raiders, once again, looking at that wide receiver spot, helping out Derek Carr and that offense. As a whole, that would be pretty scary, having Henry Ruggs and Chris Olave, 2 guys that can really take the top off the defense. And at 12, I love that selection for them.
Yeah, I do too. And I think this really fits what John Gruden and Mike Mayock look for when making draft decisions. They usually draft from winning programs. We saw it again this year. They took Alex Leatherwood out of Alabama. And Chris Olave fits that. Obviously, Ohio State, very, very good program there. A guy who would have been a first-round pick this year, stayed in college, will be a first-round pick next year more than likely. Pick 13, now we got the Carolina Panthers, and I love, love, love what they did in the draft. This year, they grabbed J.C. Horn. I thought that was maybe a little surprising, a little high, but all in all, I think he's a really good cornerback. Brady Christensen, a very, very good pick as well later on. Also grabbed Terrace Marshall to help out Sam Darnold. You have to be ecstatic. Even grab Chuba Hubbard later. I think that they've really put a lot of talent onto this roster. How do they continue building this up, Austin?
Yeah, Carolina did a phenomenal job in this year's draft. And I think how they follow that up is Tyler Linderbaum, who's a very, very talented center from Iowa. I think that they could look to continue to build that offensive line for Sam Darnold, really ensure some good protection up front for him. As a whole, they've done a phenomenal job just, drafting players not necessarily based off of need, but just good football players. I think that's what Tyler Linderbaum offers you at 13.
Right, and like you had mentioned, Austin, here, they really are putting an emphasis on that offensive line, put the franchise tag on Taylor Moton, brought in Pat Elflein, a versatile guard who's going to be able to get out and pull in space. I think he's going to be really beneficial for Christian McCaffrey there, and also went out and drafted Brady Christensen, someone who's really good in the pass game as a pass protector. Now they address the direct front of their offensive line with Tyler Linderbaum. Love that, Austin, for the Carolina Panthers. Pick 14, we have the Minnesota Vikings, another team that a lot look at as a big-time winner during the NFL draft, made a lot of good moves, possibly found their QB of the future in Kellen Mond. We'll see here now, Austin, at 14, where do Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer look?
I think they're going to be looking at that edge spot. I think Zach Harrison is going to be the selection for them. Minnesota loves drafting defensive ends, and I think Zach Harrison kind of fits the mold for the Minnesota Vikings. They also could be, potentially looking at that secondary, but I think they are going to look edge first round in this class, just considering that they've had some issues being able to put somebody opposite of Danielle Hunter, whether that be free agency or just not working out. Zach Harrison is going to fit the mold here at 14.
Yeah, Zach Harrison, I think, is going to be a perfect option to put across from Danielle Hunter. They did a great job on their offensive line. Now they put some emphasis on that D-line here. Zach Harrison is the selection. Pick 15, we've got the Arizona Cardinals here. They surprised everyone drafting Zaven Collins 16th overall this year. Now at pick 15, Austin, which way could Arizona be looking for this football team?
I think running back is a place that they might be looking. It could be a trade back option for them, but I think Isaiah Spiller could be a phenomenal fit in Arizona. Obviously, they have Chase Edmonds right now. They have James Conner, but I think long-term that they might be looking for a guy as explosive as Isaiah Spiller from Texas A&M. They love to address offense. Cliff Kingsbury wants to have a very, very potent offense, and they get that with Isaiah Spiller.
Right. They have to be looking at James Conner as a fill-in back for this year, obviously on that one-year deal. Isaiah Spiller takes the reins as their lead back of the future after this mock draft. Pick 16 now, the Steelers did just find their franchise running back in Najee Harris, 24th overall in this year's draft. At 16 now, Austin, they didn't take a tackle this year. Is that on your radar, or are they possibly looking quarterback?
I think they are looking at that tackle spot. I'm kind of interested to see what the Steelers do, but Zion Nelson could be the selection. They very well could be kind of dipping their toes in the quarterback market, but they're a little low to be able to really leverage the one that they potentially want. Zion Nelson from Miami could be a phenomenal fit. Obviously, they're another team that could be exploring that trade market for a quarterback.
Right. Pittsburgh here finds their tackle. This is a trial run year for Zach Banner, someone who used to be a swing tackle for them, was out with an injury this past year. We'll get to see in his replacement of Alejandro Villanueva if he is the tackle of the future or if they do need to look tackle at this spot in the draft next year. Pick 17, we have the New England Patriots here. They had a very interesting draft grab. Mac Jones came back on day 2, traded up to get Christian Barmore. Now at this point, Austin, where could you see New England going?
I think New England could be looking to that safety spot, just considering Devin McCourty was pondering retirement at one point in time. Also, no more Patrick Chung in that secondary. Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame could be the selection. I think that they definitely need to look in that direction. He's got that 6'4" frame, 220 pounds. He's had All-American honors in 2020. I love that pick for them. That could be the steal of the draft thus far.
Right, Kyle Hamilton, someone we really, really like here at Utility Sports, fell a little bit in this mock draft. Part of that is the positional value. Safeties tend to not go extremely, extremely high. He goes 17th here to New England. I think that they're happy, and Kyle Hamilton should be very happy to be landing in such a good defense there in New England. Pick 18 now, we got the Los Angeles Chargers, and they're a team probably looking to improve their own defense. Grabbed Rashawn Slater on day 1. Day 2 came back and grabbed Asante Samuel Jr. Now Brandon Staley needs to get a little bit more pass rush help there, in my opinion. Is that where the Chargers go at 18?
Yeah, I think Aiden Hutchinson could be the selection for them, just considering that they have to be able to replace Melvin Ingram at some point. Aiden Hutchinson could do a very, very good job in doing so. They were able to get Rashawn Slater. Now they can come back to the defensive side of the ball and ensure those trenches as well. Chargers have a very, very bright future. Aiden Hutchinson would be the pick.
Yeah, the Chargers have had a very balanced approach to the way they're going to build this team. A little bit of offense, a little bit of defense. Here now at pick 18, they do put a little bit more of that emphasis on Brandon Staley's defense for the future. Pick 19, we've got the Dallas Cowboys here, and this was a team that didn't have a lot of balance in this year's draft, but for good reason. They badly needed to address a lot of defense. They did so. I think that Jerry Jones should be very happy with some of the players and talent he was able to bring in during the 2021 NFL draft. Now for the 2022 NFL draft, Austin, where can the Cowboys look at 19?
So for the Dallas Cowboys, I think that they will be looking at the wide receiver spot. I know a lot of people might kind of be scratching their heads, but with the uncertainty of Michael Gallup and his future there in Dallas, they could be going with a guy like Treylon Burks at wide receiver. I think that could be interesting for them. He's got that 6'3" frame at wideout. Very, very high upside in this prospect. Dallas would be looking to ultimately replace Michael Gallup. And, they don't want to miss a beat with that offense. It's pretty strong as a whole with Dak Prescott, Zeke, Mari Cooper. As a whole, you want to ensure that you keep up that offense to kind of match what your defensive draft this past draft here.
Right. We're going to see a much better and more balanced draft for the Dallas Cowboys in the 2022 draft, I'm sure, addressing a little bit of offense and a little bit of defense. Had to get a lot of work done on that defense this year, though. Pick 20, now we have the second pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. They grabbed Derek Stingley Jr., 4th overall in this with their first pick. Now at pick 20, Austin, could they be looking more defense, or are they trying to help out Jalen Hurts a little bit more?
I think they're going to be looking on the defensive side of the ball. Ulofoshio would be the selection from Washington. Obviously, I think that they have to look, once again, defensive side of the ball. Improve that second level of the defense. Obviously, they took Derek Stingley with their first pick in the first round. So getting a guy like him at the second level of your defense could really help. They definitely need some more defense for that Eagles roster.
Yes, they do. The Eagles here go cornerback and linebacker, address two key areas of need for that defense moving forward. I like the Devontae Smith pick this year. Now they come back next year, grab 2 defensive players. Love that for Philadelphia. Pick 21, now we got the Tennessee Titans here. I think they had a very, very good draft as well. They grabbed Caleb Farley, who fell because of medical concerns. Now at 21, Austin, which way should the Titans be looking?
I think they are going to grab a guy that worked very, very well with Trevor Lawrence and Justin Ross. Had a very, very productive time with Trevor Lawrence. I'm very interested to see if he skips a beat at all, moving forward with the next Clemson quarterback. But Justin Ross could be a very productive wide receiver at the next level. Could be undervalued in this draft. It's very possible that he goes higher. However, we want to see the transition away from Trevor Lawrence and see if he can keep up that production.
Right, that production will be a question mark. And Tennessee's got a lot of question marks at the production spot at their wide receiver after losing Corey Davis. They did draft Racey McMath on day 3 of the NFL draft. We'll see if Tennessee is able to suffice with the wide receiver room they currently have. Pick 22, the Tennessee Titans now are on the clock, and they got to be looking tackle. They went with 2 edges in rounds 1 and 2. Which way do you see the Colts going?
I think the Colts are going to go with Abraham Lucas. They have to look at that tackle spot. I was very shocked that they went 2 consecutive edges to start the draft, but Abraham Lucas could be that next tackle for this team. Indianapolis loves the trenches. They went and got 2 guys in the defensive trenches this draft. Now they come back with a tackle from Washington State and Abraham Lucas.
I like that a lot. They find that 5th missing piece, the offensive tackle, that's going to be the long-term starter there for the Indianapolis Colts. 23 now, we got the New York Jets on the board. They had a busy draft, obviously, earlier on. In this mock, they grabbed Drake Jackson, the edge out of USC. Where could we see the Jets go now at 23, Austin?
I think they're going to go at tight end. They desperately have a need at tight end. Chris Herndon and Ryan Griffin aren't going to really get the job done. Jalen Weidermeyer at number 21 there from Texas A&M could be the selection. The New York Jets have to get Zach Wilson at tight end. I think them and Jacksonville have desperate needs at that tight end spot, but Weidermeyer could fill a huge need for them.
Right, I think the Jets did miss a little bit of an opportunity to find a starting level tight end for them this year. Weidermeyer is going to be that on day 1 of his rookie season. Pick 24, we have the New Orleans Saints here now at this point. Quarterback doesn't seem like there's a lot of different options. Is that a possibility for New Orleans? They wanted to move up this year, didn't get it done.
A guy that was projected second round of this year's class, but opted to stay and improve his draft stock. Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati could be the pick. New Orleans will be looking for a quarterback likely in this draft, unless it works out with Jameis Winston, which is very possible. However, I think that if it doesn't work out with him, Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, they have to look quarterback. Desmond Ridder's the best available.
This is a very interesting year for the New Orleans Saints. We'll get to see exactly what they have at that quarterback spot. Desmond Ridder, the second Cincinnati Bearcat to go off the board here in the first round. Pick 25, we have the Cleveland Browns here. I think they had a very good draft as well. They grabbed Greg Newsome in round 1. Got so lucky getting Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah in round 2. I love what Cleveland has done for that team and especially that defense. How do they balance out their roster here?
I think they could look at a guy like DeMarvin Leal from Texas A&M. He could fill that void at defensive tackle. Overall, their roster is very, very strong. I think where they can improve is at that D tackle spot. They signed Marvin Wilson in UDFA, but I think that DeMarvin Leal could fill a huge void for them at that D tackle spot.
Yes, he gives them a strong presence right up the middle of that defense, and you're looking at a much, much better Cleveland Browns team already going into this next season, but adding DeMarvin Leal would make them even better for the year after. Pick 26, we've got the Miami Dolphins here. They had another really good draft as well. I really trust what Brian Flores and management's doing there in Miami. How do they build on their roster now?
Breece Hall, the running back from Iowa State, very, very talented running back. Could have been had he come out this year, could have been a first-round selection, maybe top of the second round. But Breece Hall, really, really talented runner. Miami needs another element of that offense to help out Tua. Tua has had really great running games in his career with Alabama. That needs to translate to the NFL. They got to get him a run game. Breece Hall could be that pick for them.
I love that a lot, addressing that running back spot there in Miami. Moving on to 27, a team that really runs the football well. I do have a question mark, though. They didn't grab an offensive tackle during the draft. I thought they would for sure. Did not do that. They had a really good draft overall, though. You have to look at Odafe Oweh as a really good grab for them. Also, Rashad Bateman, a pick that I know both of us really like here at Utility Sports. How do the Ravens build on their draft this year into next season?
They have to get a guy like Charles Cross from Mississippi State. They have to ensure those tackle spots are strong. Obviously, I think Charles Cross could go a long way in doing so. I was surprised that they didn't take a tackle to ultimately replace Orlando Brown, but Charles Cross will get the job done for them next year.
Yes, I like this fit a lot. He comes into Baltimore. This is going to be a great situation for John Harbaugh moving forward. Pick 28, now we've got the Detroit Lions on the board yet again. They started things off in this mock draft with Spencer Rattler. Now at 28, Austin, how do they continue building up this roster?
They got to find a wideout. Garrett Wilson from Ohio State is going to be the selection. Detroit getting really good value here with Garrett Wilson all the way down at pick 28. But for Detroit, they don't have the wide receiver weapons necessary to help out Spencer Rattler long term. Garrett Wilson could be an absolute steal for them here with that 28th overall pick.
Yeah, very interesting. Detroit did not put a high emphasis on grabbing wide receivers in the draft. It looks like their starting wide receivers going into next year are going to be obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown, who they drafted, and also the wide receiver Tyrell Williams, who they brought over from the Raiders after getting released. Interesting situation here for Detroit and Jared Goff this next season. Pick 29, we got the Green Bay Packers, and they've got some controversy too at that wide receiver quarterback situation. Aaron Rodgers might not want to be around. Is it possible we see Jordan Love next year, Austin? And who would the Packers draft at this point?
It's possible that we see Jordan Love. Also, the Packers could be owning another first-round pick in this entire draft here. But I think they have to address that center spot. I think Jared Patterson could be that pick for them, a 36th overall prospect out of Notre Dame. They have to replace Corey Linsley, and that could be a phenomenal selection for them. And Green Bay loves to have very, very talented offensive linemen, and they stick with Notre Dame and get a good one here at center.
Yeah, Notre Dame, known for their offensive line play, I believe had 3 guys drafted in the first 2 days of the NFL draft off that offensive line. Jarrett Patterson, someone who's going to bring some versatility up front into the middle for the Green Bay Packers. Love that there for them. Pick 30, we've got the Buffalo Bills. Now at this point, who could the Bills be looking at 30?
The Buffalo Bills could be looking at a running back here. Kyron Williams from also Notre Dame goes off the board here. Ian Book was very, very lucky to have the weapons and the offensive line he had around him. Kyron Williams is going to be an absolute stud at the next level. He will be going to Buffalo. Obviously, they have Zach Moss and Singletary, but I just don't think that gets the job done. When you're a premier playoff team, you need to have a really good running game as well on top of it. We've seen that with some of the top-tier teams. Kyron Williams should be the selection.
Love Kyron Williams here. Obviously, the Bills put a huge emphasis on that defensive line grab, Gregory Rousseau in round 1. I think that's going to really help them this year. Kyron Williams is going to be a great addition in the future as well. Pick 31 now, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Very possible we see them back in the Super Bowl next year. That is what Pro Football Network here is expecting from the Buccaneers. Austin, where do the Bucs look now at this point?
The Buccaneers could be looking at Bubba Bolden, safety from Miami. We are unsure of the whole Whitehead contract situation, so monitoring that. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers want to ensure that defense is top tier in the league. Want to make sure that it stays, for sure in that top 5. So getting Bubba Bolden, really good value here at 31. Love the pick for them.
Yes, I think he comes in, gives them a long-term option at that safety spot. You're looking at a very good young duo of Bubba Bolden and Antoine Winfield Jr. there in Tampa Bay for the future. And finally, the final pick of the first round. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Hit that like button if you did enjoy today's video. Is the Kansas City Chiefs, Austin. They're projected to win the Super Bowl. I think that's a very fair projection. They've had a wonderful, wonderful offseason, added 4 new starting offensive linemen. And Patrick Mahomes should be feeling pretty happy to be a Kansas City Chief. How do they conclude this first round?
I think that they could look at the second level of that defense. Ventrell Miller from Florida could be the pick for them. Obviously, Kansas City's offense looks rock solid as always. However, I think, getting Ventrell Miller could be a really good pick and good value pick at 32.
Right, I think so as well. Here we are going to look real quick through the results just as a brief recap for those of you watching. I think that this was a lot of fun to record here, getting some new names in here. Obviously, you guys stuck with us during the 2021 NFL mock draft season. You guys are going to want to be here for 2022 as well. We're going to have a return of Mock Draft Monday on the channel a little bit further into the future. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you did, smash that like button. Also subscribe. Tell your friends about Utility Sports. We'd love to continue building up this collaborative platform with you guys. Thanks again so much, and we'll catch you in the very next video.